All right. Hey, today we're looking at our next way that we can solve a quadratic equation. Remember that this entire chapter is looking at different ways that we can now solve a quadratic. Yesterday we looked at solving by both factoring and by graphing. Today we're going to look at solving by, it will sometimes be called solving by square rooting. I kind of like to say that it's solving algebraically, or solving to get x by itself, but our textbook will say we're solving using square roots is how it'll put it most of the time. But if I say solve algebraically or get x by itself, it all means the same thing. These are the only three examples that we're going to look at here today. Notice that all of these examples only have a single x in them, okay? In other words, these are not something like 4x squared plus 5x minus 10 equals 0. There's not an x squared and an x term. There's only one x in each of these. That's why we're able to solve these by getting x by itself, or solve them algebraically, solve them by square rooting. We're going to follow the exact same algebra steps that you had back in Algebra 1. We're going to try to get x by itself. So to do that, we would start by adding 31 to each side. That would give us 80. Divide by 4. And that would give us 20. Now, to undo x squared, we have x squared equals the inverse of something squared, or the opposite, is to square root it. So we're going to have to square root both sides. Now, a couple things to review with square roots. You saw this in Algebra 1, but a couple things to review. First thing, let's say that I had x squared equal 9. Well, the square root of 9 we know is 3. But if we think about what we can plug into x to square and then get 9, yeah, we can get 3, but we can also get negative 3. So when we square root both sides, we have to remember to put the little plus or minus in front of the square root anytime we square root both sides, to make sure we get the positive and the negative. So here, we would need both positive square root of 20 and negative square root of 20. Now, another thing that you saw in the big ideas was how we simplify square roots. We simplify square roots, in case you didn't get it, we simplify square roots by breaking down the number in the square root to be a perfect square times another number. Remember, our perfect squares are 2 squared, which is 4, 3 squared, which is 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, and so on. 3 times 3, 4 times 4, 5 times 5, 6 times 6. All those are perfect squares. So we got to figure out what perfect square goes into 20. Well, 4 is a perfect square, and it'd be 4 times 5. We want to break this up because we can now apply the square root to the 4. That would give me 2. So my final answer would be plus or minus 2 times the square root of 5. Again, anytime we have a square root in this chapter, we have to make sure we're simplifying it when we can. Here we'd subtract 9 from each side, divide by 3, and then we would square root both sides. Can't forget our plus or minus. Now, if you try to type the square root of negative 3 into your calculator, it's going to say error. We are not able to square root a negative, so you would say no real solution. And that answer will work okay for today. Now in letter C, it's a little different. We have parentheses. We'll see how that changes things in just a minute. I'm going to add 3 to both sides. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that I see here is people try to distribute the 5/4 into the parentheses. We are not allowed to distribute here. Because it's squared, we'd have to square it first. So instead of trying to distribute, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. This would give me 4. Now I'm going to square root both sides. I can't get at this x minus 3 until I take care of the square. So I square root both sides. Don't forget your plus or minus. Square root of 4 is 2. Now I do need to simplify this. If I do positive 2 plus 3, that gives me 5, and then the negative piece, negative 2 plus 3, that gives me 1. So these would be my two solutions. Notice with these, where's my laser? There it is. Notice with these, when x is the thing that is squared, my last step is going to be to square root both sides and then simplify. Same thing here. X is the thing that's squared. So my last step was to square root and to simplify. When parentheses are squared, square rooting is going to be my middle step because I need to unlock the parentheses. So don't just think that my answer every time is just square rooting the last number and taking the positive and the negative of it. Nope. If parentheses are squared, I am not distributing into them. In my middle step, I'm going to first get the parentheses on a side by itself, then my middle step is going to be to square root both sides, and then finish solving for x. Those are the only three examples. Those are the three different types of problems that you'll need. Your difficulty probably today is going to come with simplifying the square roots. That's a lot of times the hardest part of this. But you've got now a worksheet and an exit ticket.